As you're listening to this, thoughts are happening. You're not creating them deliberately. They're just appearing. Some are about what I'm saying. Some are about your day. Some are about whether this is worth your time. Now pause on this. You are aware of those thoughts. That might sound obvious, but it's the entire doorway. Because awareness and thought are not the same thing. If they were, you wouldn't be able to notice thought at all. This episode is not about calming the mind. It's not about silencing thoughts. It's not even about positive thinking. It's about examining something most people never examine. What is the relationship between you and your thoughts? And more importantly, who is aware of them? Most people live with an unexamined assumption. I am my thoughts. They don't say it explicitly. They just live as if it's true. So when a thought appears like, I'm not good enough, I've messed this up, people don't respect me, it doesn't feel like information, it feels like identity. That's why thoughts have emotional weight. That's why a single sentence in the mind can change posture, breathing, mood. But think carefully. You didn't choose your first thought this morning, the random memory that pops up, the intrusive idea that arrives uninvited. Thoughts behave more like weather than decisions. They arise due to conditioning, memory, biology, pattern recognition, survival mechanisms. Yet we treat them as truth. That's not wisdom, that's a misunderstanding of what thought actually is. Let's slow this down. Right now, instead of listening to your thoughts, notice that you are listening to them. Let's repeat that. Right now, instead of listening to your thoughts, notice that you are listening to them. That's subtle but critical. A thought appears, another thought reacts to it. You notice both. Now ask very quietly, if I'm noticing the thought, how can the thought be me? If a sound happens in a room, you are not the sound. If a sensation arises in the body, you are not the sensation. And if a thought appears in awareness, it follows the same logic. This isn't philosophy yet, it's observation. Thoughts are objects, they have content, they change, they disappear. But the awareness that notices them does not seem to come and go in the same way. That's the crack. This insight feels destabilizing for a reason. Your sense of me has been built largely on internal dialogue, memory, narrative, self-description. When you realize those things are observed, not the observer, the structure loosens. People often say, if I'm not my thoughts, then who am I? And that question feels uncomfortable because the mind wants a conceptual answer. But the observer isn't conceptual. You can't turn it into a story without it becoming another thought, which you then observe. That's why this insight doesn't feel like information. It feels like the floor shifting slightly underneath identity. In psychology, this is sometimes called the observing self, metacognition, cognitive diffusion. And the key shift is this. Instead of being inside the thought, you are aware of the thought. This has enormous consequences because when a thought is observed, it loses authority. It becomes data, not a command. It stops dictating behavior automatically. This is why awareness creates choice. Not because thoughts stop, but because identification stops. So let's talk about emotion. Most people believe emotions overwhelm them. But what overwhelms them is identification, not feeling. When anger arises and you think, I am angry, the entire nervous system mobilizes around that identity. But if anger arises, then simply anger is present. Something interesting happens. The emotion still exists, but it moves, it changes, it completes. Observation allows emotion to do what it is meant to do, pass through. This is why suppressing emotion fails, and analysing emotion endlessly also fails. Observation is different. When you are no longer fused with thought, identity stops being rigid. You are no longer your worst thought, your strongest emotion, your past narrative. Identity becomes something more functional. You can think a thought without becoming it, feel an emotion without drowning in it, use the mind without being used by it. This is not detachment from life, it's engagement without entanglement. The observer is not something mystical. It is not something you have to create. It's already there. Every time you notice I'm overreacting, I'm overthinking, I'm lost in my head, the observer is already present. The practice is not effort, it's remembering, returning, noticing, stepping back half a step, and from that half step, clarity emerges naturally. I want to leave you with something to sit on, not to answer. At some point today, a thought will arise. You'll notice it. When that happens, quietly recognise this thought is known, and whatever knows it is not disturbed by it. That knowing is not personal, it's not dramatic, it doesn't need validation, but it is stable. And learning to live from there changes how you relate to pressure, fear, ambition, identity, and yourself. Not by force, but by understanding.